The issue I have with Gen Z are many, but today I'll talk about two. One, anybody who believes that he or she is clever and does not need advice. A good general would occasionally call privates, the recruits and whatever, and just have a talk with them, ask them their views on this, on that. When you find somebody who is so sure of himself or whatever, and you want to talk something and he says or she says, nyinyi wazee, others would say, nyinyi watu ya ushago, something. That dismissive action by itself is bad. I think the greatest wisdom is in listening. You listen and then make your own decision. I have heard, first of all, I said two things. The one thing is that Gen Zs don't have a plan. What then? What then? Two, not only do they choose certain sections in the Constitution, but even the few sections that they choose, they misread it. If you remember the late Otieno Kajwang, he used to say in public places that if you read section this and that, as read with, and he could giggle. If you read a section this and this, as read together with this section, come this. In a constitution or any law, you do not read one section and then just follow that. In law and in constitution, ask any lawyer, you read several related acts and then join them together, then come back. Another thing about law and constitutionalism is that it is assumed, I'm repeating the word assumed, it is assumed that the framers of the Constitution were very wise and they cannot make any mistake. You'll find that even in today's TV stations, radio station, or let's just say media houses, they usually call people who participated in the drafting of the Constitution. But they never tell him, what did you mean that? The question is usually, what were the framers of the Constitution? What did they have in mind? Then we try to interpret what these people said. And as Akajwang says, are read together with. You don't just take one piece and read that. As I've said, the Gen Z do not have an exit plan. I saw the other time their supposedly leader, Samuel, he was in, he get crashed into Bunge la Wananchi, and he was even told by Gaucho that the problem with you is that you people are out for distraction only, but you are not there for solutions. And Samuel tried to answer, but then the answer even gives them to be more useless than even before they talked. Because Gaucho asked Samuel, you want Ruto to go? Yes. If Ruto goes, Gachagua remains. You want Gachagua to go? Yes. If Gachagua goes, Wetangula goes. If Wetangula goes, Chief Justice goes. I don't know. I'm imagining a situation where it will even reach the extent of that. You see, some people live in utopia. Remember, I'd even said before, nowadays we have ships, but previously we used to have boats or those they were ships but were controlled by wind. These ships were made of wood, and inside the ship used to be food, and so rats would go there. When they have when they find that they cannot eat food, they start eating that wooden, and after eating the wooden thing, the boat sinks. At least the human being were there, because you cannot go sailoring without knowing how to swim. He can swim 4 to 5 kilometers before he is eaten by sharks. But what about the rat? The rat that ate the wood that made the boat sink is the first one to drown. Anyway, I just wanted today to talk about one of the places that they have misinterpreted. And as I've said, Otieno Kajwang used to say, read this section as read with the following. So you just don't take one section. Because Samuel said that the Constitution says, and that is the section where I wanted to talk today. Because Samuel said that the Constitution says that the citizens of Kenya can act through their elected leaders or they themselves directly. Now, according to Gene C, that saying that they can now take it directly means that they have to go to Supreme Court, break the fences, enter the Supreme Court, go to the Parliament, break the fences, get that, go to State House, break. The framers of state did not mean that. It did not mean mobocracy, democracy through mobocracy. It meant that there are some things which can be done by elected leader. You'll see that in our constitution, there are some places which are tied, which politicians, elected leaders cannot do it without calling for a referendum. So when they said that, the previous constitution, the independent Kenya in the constitution up to 2010, said that anything you wanted to do, for example, even if today we decided that we have to change the national flag or the national anthem, they only needed to have a quorum in the parliament, and they had to have what we call super majority. If the super majority decided something, a constitutional change, they would do it. But then they said that there were some constitutional changes which were tied, which the Kenyan on the street had to personally vote in a referendum. So when you read, they are saying that you can do it through elected leaders or through directly. It means that there are some things that elected leaders cannot do unless a referendum is called. Lastly, I had to tell Kenyans that, and I remember my class teacher when I was a recruit, the then inspector Elijah Kisanga Wakatulu, he told us that when you study law, forget the Queen's English, wachana na the meaning of the normal English, because the law has its own meaning and interpretation. So when you read the Constitution and start interpreting it using the English, maybe you have a Bachelor of Education in English or a Bachelor of Arts in English, and then you start interpreting the law is different. And I want to give you just one example where law is the English of law is different from the Queen's English, or nowadays it's the King's English. For example, in English, if you commit a crime, the aim of committing the crime and the intention of committing the crime is the same. But if you take the law or if you ask a lawyer to interpret the word intention and to interpret the word aim, you'll find that they mean very, very different. Because in a court of law, you'd be asked, what was your aim? After you said, then what was your intention? So let us read law and Constitution as lawyers, as constitution, not as English speakers. Thank you.